What's going on, everybody? Culturedog Sam Hatch, back with another video. I wasn't sure if I was going to put this on this channel or my heavy metal channel called The House of Zaz. So I do apologize if you get a little bit of heavy metal action over the next couple of videos, and you're like, what do you, come on, talk about Russell Crowe movies or something, music related. So if you're not a metal fan, I apologize. I'll be back with, spotlight reviews of, fun action movies and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I figured since I had recently done some spotlight Laserdisc releases of Metallica's Cunning Stunts and the Year and a Half in the Life set, I would just continue with that ball. And I picked up the Blu-ray reissue, or first issue on Blu-ray, reissue on home video of Metallica, Some Kind of Monster. And this hit theaters in 2004. It began as a simple, behind-the-scenes documentary, much like the Year and a Half in the Life, documenting the Black Album. But it's actually from the makers of Paradise Lost. If you ever saw the film about the film series, actually, there's three. But the West Memphis Three, and being accused of killing three kids, and then saying that they were innocent, and the kind of brouhaha surrounding that eventual case, and then also the Brothers Keeper documentary, and so Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky approached Metallica because Metallica were kind of leery of using their music in films. And as far as I recall, Paradise Lost was the first time Metallica's music was officially licensed to be used in a film, and I think they even let the filmmakers do it for pretty much next to nothing. So they had this nice working relationship with the guys, and they said, "Oh well, while you make your new album, we'll do it." And it, much like Lamb of God's As the Palaces Burn, it becomes another film altogether shortly after filming. So it starts off with Metallica renting a section of the Presidio military base in San Francisco, which was pretty cool. And they load in all this equipment. Metallica's, pretty keen on doing weird things or just taking on these huge endeavors, and certainly loading all this equipment into this, barracks-type room environment, and the Presidio is pretty impressive. And it gets into them trying to work in a new writing style, a little bit more all-inclusive, because before it was very insular. It was, a couple people might throw some riffs on the table, and then James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, the guitarist and chief songwriter and vocalist, James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich, the drummer and pretty big arranger of music in the band. They usually run with it and do all the work themselves, and then tell everybody else what to play. And shortly, I think it was just before the filming begins, pretty much, Jason Newsted, longtime bass player for the band since 1986, after their original second bass player, Cliff Burton, passed away. Jason Newsted decided to quit the band and move on. And so it creates a lot of turmoil for the group. And as this film starts, they're kind of stewing in that turmoil, and a longtime producer, Bob Rock, is actually called in to not just produce their new album, which eventually became Saint Anger, but also to play bass on it, because they don't have a bass player. So there's a lot of kind of what ifs and question marks in the air. So this film came out in theaters briefly and hit home video, and I saw it at least twice in the theaters. It is interesting to see it on Blu-ray because it's not a very high def, like really detailed film. I mean, I saw it on the big screen and I saw it on DVD, and it looked like a kind of low grade DVD on the big screen. Like the titles don't appear to be very detailed. There's a lot of like weird, like fuzzy edges. Like I don't know if it's been DNR'd or whatever, but I mean, it's in the source material. I mean, a lot of this stuff started being shot in the early 2000s, so. The material, it's framed 4:3 or 1.33:1, like the regular old school square-ish TV frame. So it's hasn't been widened for 16:9 TVs. It's still presented in its original theatrical aspect ratio. And it seems to have been shot on video, and not the highest video quality even way back in the early 2000s. So there is a new 25-minute follow-up video on here called This Monster Lives, and that's shot in modern, 1080p, 16:9 widescreen, And when you see that, you're going to be like, whoa, that's what Blu-ray should look. So don't expect, this reissue to be an amazing upgrade in, video quality and all that kind of stuff. It is a fascinating story still. Just watching it again, I had seen it a ton of times, and it was fun kind of getting back into the world of it. As this kind of turmoil is stewing and the band is fracturing, personalities are clashing, their management, who, it's interesting, the amount of kind of behind-the-scenes stuff in this. You could see the management kind of declaring their issues. You could see Metallica's lawyers doing their things in one scene. And it reminded me of a Pink Floyd documentary I heard that got made and got shelved because David Gilmour was distressed by the fact that it just made them look like they were just doing business deals all the time. But Metallica, it's honest. They don't shy away from any of that stuff, for better or worse. Jason Newsted, now being out of the band, kind of chimes in on his thoughts about what eventually occurs, which is the management hires a performance coach specialist, a gentleman named Phil Towle, who comes in with crazy Cosby sweaters and a total non-Metallica guy, if there ever was one, and kind of starts eventually having therapy sessions with the band and also Bob Rock. And notoriously, there's a scene where Dave Mustaine, ex-Metallica member and current Megadeth member, is drawn in to talk to Lars Ulrich in one scene. And then Phil Towle eventually becomes more and more involved in the band's life and their performances, and becomes this kind of like hippie-ish thing where they all sit around and listen to riffs and write song ideas on a pad of paper and pass them to each other. And Phil loves it, eats it up, and he is kind of cast as a bit of a villain, as Lars mentions in the behind-the-scenes footage in this film, because it's that situation where like you have to kill your teacher to move on. You have to that Buddhist concept. So as a teacher, like he kind of he embraces these characters and thinks he's one of them, and eventually, after he's taught them, they have to kick him to the curb and move on. And it's not really comfortable for him. So there's a lot of interesting dynamic with that. But then it gets even more intense as James Hetfield decides that he's had enough of alcohol in his life and other things, and goes to rehab and leaves the band altogether and leaves these people's lives. And then it becomes about Kirk Hammett, the guitarist, and Lars Ulrich and Bob Rock, and dealing with this Phil Towle character, and wondering what the future of the band is, if there is a future to the band. And it gets back into what Jason Newsted's doing with his side project and what's that going on. So on the one hand, the kind of larger-than-life heavy metal mythology is debunked. There's a scene where James Hetfield is taking his daughter to ballet class, and it shows that there is a human side of these characters, and it's not cool to be in therapy with some guy that's in a Cosby sweater, especially if you're in a metal band. So it kind of toes that line between, do these guys really need this? Do they need to spend $40,000 a week or whatever they're spending on therapy to carry on? Should they carry on? Should they break up? Is it, it brings up so many questions, and I'll leave you to answer them or, come up with your own kind of spin on things. So the extras here are pretty much the same. And if you notice on the bottom, it says Blu-ray and DVD, and it is a Blu-ray with the film and a DVD. So everything, I guess they realized all the bonus features that are ported over from the DVD aren't going to be upgraded. They're not going to be upscaled, so why waste all the extra space, I guess? You'll notice that the Paramount logos on the original releases have been replaced with Blackened logos. As Metallica they're in the news lately because they've been talked about being on the cusp of bankruptcy because their Orion Festival and the Through the Never IMAX film, etc. But yeah, they have all their original albums now under their Blackened imprint. So it was smart of them to reissue this under their own banner. But extra features, it's the same stuff that was on. There's a commentary track from Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky, and then there's another commentary track with the band. There's a lot of extra scenes and deleted scenes, a lot of stuff showing the performance for the Oakland Raiders, kind of like tailgate party they did where Bob Rock had to play bass, and they were like wondering, does he get to play bass in front of people? Because then people think he's the bass player. There is the really cool scene where they do audition bass players, so you get to see eventual Metallica bass player Rob Trujillo as he joins the band, and all the other cool people that try out for the band. And then there's a lot of other, performance stuff on the extras. And it helps if you're a fan of Saint Anger. I'm a bit of a Saint Anger apologist because really the load era did as much as it could. And they even reference that in here. Lars is like, these songs, we can get them perfectly polished and get them, immaculate. And everyone else is like, well, that's kind of what we did with Load already and Reload. And that's like a problem. Like, we need to just make it dirty. And I got what they were going for when Saint Anger came out. It was just, make it nasty. I love the Pusshead artwork too, but it was just make it nasty, and it was like one of those kind of back to the garage things. Even though it was, recorded in, high quality production studios. Eventually, after they leave the Presidio, they go to their HQ facility that they build, and Lars' snare drum sounds like a tin can. I know that's a bone of contention among fans, but I like what they did. It was like they took kind of inspiration from some bands and obviously nu metal, but they couldn't quite pull it off, which is cool because you don't want Metallica sounding like Korn or Slipknot, but just kind of taking influence from it, they kind of made their own weird little beast with this album, and I do appreciate what it does. In the documentary, you'll hear Kirk mentioning that guitar solos should be included in the songwriting, and that's the one thing I agree with heartily. Whereas Lars Ulrich comes off being prophetic with his Napster trials and controversy and all that, but Kirk points out that Lars's determination that there be no guitar solos on the Saint Anger album, Kirk mentions that that dates the album more than anything. It steeps it in the now, as opposed to it just chases a current fad, as opposed to thinking on the long run. So it's good Kirk eventually won and got guitar solos back on Death Magnetic. If you don't want to hear what the album would sound like without the Metallica Lars Ulrich tin drum, you can check out the version on the Some Kind of Monster EP of the song Some Kind of Monster. There's a version on here mixed by Randy Staub, and it shows you kind of what a polished or more Black Album-ish or Load-ish, Reload-ish version of Saint Anger could have sounded like. So it's still possible. They could even go back in and remix it, even though they probably won't because they never remixed Injustice for All and put the bass back in it. So yeah, if you've been watching Quebec Magnetic and Through the Never and all that kind of stuff, and you're expecting, Blu-ray, it's going to be this amazing upgrade in quality. No, because it looked like rough digital in the theaters. It looked like rough-ish digital on DVD, and it still does. That said, there are some moments later on in the film, I think, when they're getting towards the end of the process and the post-production, where I started to notice a little bit more detail. I'm almost wondering if they got better cameras as the shooting progressed, because this covers like almost 700 days worth of material, so I'm guessing they upgraded it at some point. But yeah, it's definitely worth picking up if you don't have the DVD. If you do have the DVD, I'll leave it up to you, because the only thing really that's extra is that This Monster Lives. And yeah, there's Joe Berlinger put together this 25-minute pseudo documentary called This Monster Lives. And it sets it up like interesting because Metallica's at the Toronto International Film Festival to premiere the Through the Never IMAX film, and they get them all together because it's actually been 10 years since this movie came out, which is crazy to think about. And they figured they'd get their thoughts on it, and they have a round table, and they don't really show much of that, which is kind of depressing because, it shows you a lot of promo stuff for Through the Never, and then it shows a lot of flashbacks that rehashes the story of Some Kind of Monster, but I've seen Some Kind of Monster like 5 times, so I don't really need to hear the story again. I really just want to see more of the band kind of talking about what they didn't already talk about in the copious extra features, because it's got all their panels from film festivals and everything on here. So it didn't really add much to the table. So if you have the DVD, I can't really say you need to have this, but if you don't have it already, pick it up. If you're a Metallica fan, check it out. And even if you don't like Saint Anger, you might be interested in it. But I think it's a ferocious album. I love the bits in here where they show the band shooting the title track video at San Quentin Prison. And there's so much just energy and raw fury in there. And I think it's something the band had been missing for a while. And despite the production value problems that are quoted a lot for this era, I think it is something interesting, and I think the songs kind of hold up too. So your results may vary. So, all right, we're going to come back with some more metal in a second. I know, right? Crazy.